I do think an untapped vein of funny is just the stupidity of ways in which people are trying to be on the right side of history but haven't really thought through the logic of how they're trying to get there.
All right, guys, welcome to the Bulwark's Next Level podcast. I'm here with my aspiring buddy and I guess kind of ish fellow Regis alum, though you're New York and I'm Denver, Pablo Torre of ESPN, Meadowlark. For our political nerd audience, and just as a quick trigger warning for everybody. If you don't like sports, the beginning of this is going to be fun. We got a lot of political, politics, culture stuff to do.
Yeah.
Me and Pablo are going to really nerd out on the NBA at the very end. So you can just, I'll let you know, you can tune out then if you don't care about the NBA. But for folks who don't know, just give us a little penny tour through your life and this new venture you're doing with Le Batard and get people up to speed.
Yeah, so long-time ESPN gas bag on television, was a magazine writer, was Jesuit educated. Glad we did not bury the lead there, Tim, on the real core of me. But went to Harvard, lived that insane caricature of an existence that I think people still maybe find most interesting about me, despite the fact that I'm now sadly in the phase of like, guys, I've done stuff since going to college and I don't just want to be the guy. I do have stories about Mark Zuckerberg, but that could be another podcast.
Ooh,
but anyway, going from college to Sports Illustrated to ESPN, now to Meadowlark, where I have a show that I'm building from scratch. And I will do the very brief www.pablo.show. All of that shit will be explained there, and now I'm with Tim. So I think that.
But we don't know. It's a secret. We don't exactly know what the show is going to be.
That's right. It's the secret. Yeah. It has a bit of a sales pitch that I will spare you, but mostly I want to entice you to give me your email address. It's free, for the love of God. Thank you. Empathetic plea. Yes.
Well, our other Kevin Bacon connection is as part of your ESPN punditry, you were around the horn and pardon the eruption kind of guest. Yes. I don't know what the official title was.
Family member, strange son who's older than he looks. Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah, there you go. So a high school buddy of mine's mom dated Woody Page growing up in Denver.
Oh my
so that's
God.
our other connection. I'd go show up to Woody's condo or whatever it was, hoping to see him as a high school sports dork, and he was never around. And then the Meadowlark thing is interesting. We started doing these pods that like weren't as political for the Bulwark, and like the first one we tried out was with Billy Corbin, who's like super political. He's a Miami documentarian.
Sure.
He did the Jerry Falwell doc, and he's doing some stuff for Meadowlark. So explain what that is. So Dan Le Batard's a longtime radio guy. He and now it's like this little sports media empire, but there's some culture stuff. Like what's happening over there?
Yeah, so Billy is also my entree into ESPN in a way. He directed Broke, the documentary that was based on a story I did for Sports Illustrated. Kind of the first thing I did at ESPN, and now I've just followed Billy Corbin.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that one actually, man. Yeah, no, on the pod we talked about all of his other documentaries that I guess didn't feature
deeply. That's a grave content strategy mistake by you, Tim. But Billy is incredibly political. Does a show called Because Miami, in which he basically muckrakes Miami politics, which is to speak to the general premise of Dan's show, which is that he was at ESPN. He's in the lineage, I would say, of like the Bill Simmons tradition of like guys who had huge fandoms that were constrained inside of ESPN. So when you get out of ESPN, what do? And so they made their own sports media company that also does non-sports stuff. And Dan and me, by the way, Dan's a mentor of mine in ways that are both sincere and also quite oppressive. I am sort of part of his family, and in a way, there is a hazing aspect to it. So part of the non-sports stuff he does is kind of the reality show of his entire family, literal family, but also the show family. And I'm one of those people. But he also does politics. He does pop culture. All of that sort of sports as one way to see culture. Kind of approach to content. I hate saying content unironically, but I'm going to do it a lot today.
Yeah, you just got to embrace it. So I'm interested in your take on this. Yeah, I guess the Le Batard thing isn't like explicitly political in the way that our friend maybe Clay Travis's thing is, which we'll get to in a second. But I'm wondering your just assessment of like as an outside observer to sports media. It's like pretty weird that sports media is bifurcating along political lines. Maybe bifurcating is overstating it, but like you have people who are explicitly kind of espousing brands that like embrace, different part of our culture war is maybe a better way to put it. Like, does that make you uncomfortable? Is that just necessary? Like, would you rather just kind of like, get high and watch basketball and not have to like hear people's takes about this stuff? Or like, do you feel like it's necessary to use the platform to talk about this? Like, how do you, kind of assess the, I guess the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James view of how athletes should deal with.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan is my goat. Ronald Reagan is my goat.
Okay,
I'm
really
glad we got to my real plank here. No, I think about this in the sense of, okay, there are two levels to this, right? On the one hand, sports is kind of the only monoculture we have left in American life. Right. It's kind of one of the few things. Maybe the MCU is up there, but I would say sports is a more sincere cultural institution where I will go to a sporting event and next to me will be a guy who listens, watches, believes, worships nothing in common with me or the guy on the other side of him. And that's just a rare thing. And so sports as just this big tent in which lots of people still gather to suss out issues of genuine conflict because those other disagreements tend to, of course, bleed into everything else. Like, that's why I love sports, honestly, is that it's not siloed. But what you're describing and what has been incentivized economically in the fragmentation of media broadly is, of course, the siloing of everything. It's like, hey, we want to sell ourselves directly as the exclusive truth teller. And it just so happens that the truth we're selling is your preferred version of it.
Right.
And so, so there's siloing of everything. And my goal, whenever possible, is to avoid the algorithmic rut that suggests that I am now buying that version of news and information. But for me, I find myself amused by it because I also think it's fascinating in the way that sports is just another lens to see the world through. I think looking at politics through sports, as I marvel at Tommy Tuberville, senator, standing next to two female swimmers talking about how we need to save our girls, I'm just like, this is all very on the nose now. The idea that it's all jumbled into this giant, insane Where's Waldo, in which people are pretending actually the real good ones are over there, but not over there.
Yeah, like the ability to hide from it's impossible. One of the most acute political moments I've experienced in the past 8 years, which has been a lot of acute political moments, like actually happened at a sporting event. So I'm at the LSU Clemson national championship game, and fucking Trump comes out, like assaulting my game, just like ruining my fun. And, so we're sitting there in the stands and, so it's LSU Clemson. So a decent MAGA crowd there. But it's also a college educated crowd. So, it cuts both ways. And we happen to be in the section by a lot of the players' parents. LSU's players' parents. And so like Trump comes out and like my little group is, booing him. And that's and then the MAGA people all around us start to get pissed and they start to yell at him. And then a lot of the players' parents, a lot of them are black, kind of like looking at us and like telling us to chill out. Like we don't want this fight right now. Like we're not trying to break out into a fight in the stands.
We don't want to be the background characters of a TikTok that I did not want to participate in.
Yeah. And that just to me like was a 1 minute moment that like kind of encapsulated just this new reality, which is like as much as I wanted deeply, despite that I'm a political professional, I didn't want to think about Donald Trump that day. I didn't want to think about politics. I just wanted to enjoy Joe Burrow and the beauty of Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but you can't, right? Like, and I feel like that is your daily life, right? Doing sports stuff, right? Like some days you can avoid it, but a lot of times it's being thrust on you.
I would say that it really has, and this is maybe just owing to the numbness, Tim, the deadening of my nerve endings, but it was so truly terrible in 2015, 16, 17, 18, and then I think we got to this general point where we are now, where just a collective exhaustion isn't even, like the algorithm isn't even serving me Clay Travis anymore. And I'm like, is this because I am
so
less...
lucky.
I truly am like wondering, should Clay be mad at the Twitter algorithm, or am I just doing better at not clicking on the thing I intellectually know I shouldn't click on? Am I just more disciplined now? But in terms of just the way that all of this pervades, yeah, it's swimming in everything. It's all one tank, man. Like, it's all one premise of what happens when certainly like the most famous influential American also likes to use sports as his hobby horse. And it turns out, by the way, that one consequence of that is not just that there are these intersectional boos coming out of a crowd at a football game. It's also that he renders your hypothetical political coherence totally untenable. So, like, one of the funniest things to me looking back now is why no one talks about Kaepernick anymore. I'm just like, wait a minute. So Colin Kaepernick was like the biggest hobby horse for all of these people. And then suddenly they pivoted maybe, I guess, to like free speech warriors in a way that is on its own merits, like also ridiculous, but specifically through the lens of like our number one campaign issue was telling a guy he can't do this thing that was a definitional free speech act. Because the president, the most powerful person in the country, was like, get him the fuck out of this game. Yeah. And it's like, do you guys not bring it up for that reason? Or is it for, you just forget? Like, I'm just
Maybe it becomes a little more challenging to say that it's un-American to protest the American flag when your people are literally storming the Capitol to protest. All of a sudden, the Kaepernick protest doesn't seem quite as, offensive to the flag as like waving a Confederate flag or a Trump flag and like flying it over the U.S. Capitol.
Turns out stochastically or directly killing a police officer to storm the Capitol makes it harder to be a big purity test guy when it comes to how to use and weaponize the flag.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Okay, so Clay's been mentioned 3 times already, which I'm sure he'd love, which is fucking annoying. And so we got to do it. For people who don't know, I did a big was the my Clay Travis thing how we started doing the Twitter follow thing together?
I think in that haze it must have been.
It must have been. Yeah, I picked up a ton of sports reporter follows right after I did a profile on this guy Clay Travis. For people who don't know, he went to GW with me, and he started as just kind of a college football blogger, and he's a lawyer and the college football blogger, and he would talk about politics because he's from DC, but it was always kind of centrist bro politics basically. And then, essentially, like, he sees what we've been talking about in the lead up, which is this fragmentation and how, of the sports media, and how like there's a lane to be served, let's just say, in MAGA sports commentary. And so he starts doing a lot of pro-Trump, MAGA, COVID denialism stuff. And now since I wrote this profile, now has a literal politics podcast in addition to his sports stuff, where he's on with this guy Buck Sexton, which is a real name, not a fake name. Buck Sexton.
By the way, went to Regis High School, was at Regis while I was there.
Clay?
So no, Buck.
Oh, Buck.
Oh, yeah.
I could have sniffed that out.
There are tendrils. How dare you? There are tendrils connecting us to all of these characters.
Yeah, he would have never come to Regis in Denver, but I could see him at the New York Regis. So anyway, I wrote basically a takedown of just how disingenuous this is. Like Clay is like this doesn't exist in the real world. People who are Obama voters who decided to go full MAGA, but he saw this market opportunity. So what do you feel like there is is Dan, what you is there now a counterbalance to that? Like that, are we going to start getting liberal sports podcasts and assess the Clay situation for me?
Yeah, I would say that I am already regretting, again, doing the very thing that one seeks most in his position, which is the currency of attention. But of course, this is the game, and we're all fated to play it. But I would also say that I see it through the lens of identity politics, right? Like, the grand irony of all of this is that I hate identity politics so much, says fill in the blank right-leaning conservative sports commentator, that all I will do now is profit off of the most potent and persuasive use of identity politics in America. Like, the thing about it is that they are so much better at identity politics than the other side. Like, liberals are terrible at identity politics. There are fractured coalitions. There's this idea of, how can you possibly be monolithic if you're actually trying to do justice to, all of these subgroups inside of these identities that we broadly categorize for the purpose of general ease of white people understanding. All of that is complicated. And then there's the other side, which is, essentially it boils down to the very basic thought, and this is the thing that animates both trans athletes protests and Bud Light boycotts. It's just the "you will not replace us" shit. And that grievance of like, we are the real sports fans and you are the fake sports fans. How dare you replace us by going woke and going broke or whatever it is. Like, that whole thing is wish casting. To use a baseball nerd term, like, they want their value over replacement player, their VORF, value over replacement fan, to be so infinitely large that they can readjust the tides of, I guess, just a grand cultural evolution. And so there is no political coherent philosophy at all. That's kind of a function of Trump, but also a function of just, all I'm here for is to be told that I'm important, and more important than people who are running these woke corporations want to admit. And so when you see it through that lens, it's just sort of like, I'm kind of numb to it now. I'm like, go do that. I get it. There's no way of reasoning or shaming. Shame obviously doesn't work. Like, so what am I going to do with that?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I was the most triggered by his stuff during COVID, right? Because it's like, people are actually dying because of this, right? Like, people, and this is why I ended up writing an article. And like the sports reporters, I've never had so many DMs from random sports reporters I've been reading for years who are like, thank you, that fucking guy, but like, I can't say it because of DV. And I was like, yeah, I'm happy to do it. But like, that was the one that really bugged me. Like, if he's going to do the, conservative talk radio outrage of the day, I'm pissed at Bud Light, I'm pissed at Bubba Wallace, I'm pissed at what, like, okay, like, all right, whatever. But the COVID thing, that was influencing people. Like, people are not,
that's true,
we're not getting vaccinated because of it. And the stuff lately has definitely felt like it carries less of a salience.
I agree. I found, and this is just, man, I fell prey to the anger, the rising blood pressure, just because the grift during COVID was so obvious. Yeah. The grift of like, I'm just gonna treat all of this as if I'm an expert. And this is why, like, in sports, I get it. I'm not bothered by it. The idea that you will never be held to account for any of your predictions. Because
I've been holding some people to account for their Nuggets predictions, but deservedly, they've maintained their jobs. Kendrick's still on TV.
Kendrick Perkins is stronger than ever, unfortunately for you. But that became, exasperating when it came to like, oh, by the way, I live in fucking New York. Like, the whole thing. I mean, look, the very brief COVID take I have is that I understand the ability to abstract this out into generally, treating COVID victims as if they're all just the countless third world residents dying in a mudslide. Like, I get the number. I'm sure that's probably right. But I don't give a fuck about it, right? I get that. But when you're in New York and literally, like, we're clanging the pots and pans and they're like refrigerated trucks, it's just sort of like, yeah, I'm going to get my blood boiled a bit about that, because if I don't, it means that I'm just emotionally dead. And I wasn't ready for that part yet.
I want to get into a series of specific issues, but I'm going to take the Clay Travis side of this. We mentioned Kendrick for just 1 second, and I want to get your pushback to it. Is there anything to be said? And I think that what they're doing, the gross white, I think that you nailing him and his ilk on doing, white conservative male identity politics is exactly right. But is there not, like, was there not a little bit of justification to the notion of they're turning on sports and like getting shit thrown in their face? The Phil Jackson thing about how in the bubble, like, everybody's wearing jerseys, that have these kind of pointless slogans on it. Some of the
group economics. You don't have your group economics jersey hanging.
Yeah, vote for Millsap was the one I always remember. And the Black Lives Matters on the court. I mean, I think this doesn't bother me, but is there something about how it was just unnecessarily in their face? And the one that happened this year, to mention Perkins, is Perkins goes on TV and starts doing the, MVP voters are going for Jokic just because he's white, like, argument, which is like so absurd and got proven so wrong, obviously, in the months that followed. Sure. But if that kind of stuff, if they're like doing that kind of liberal identity politics stuff all the time on SportsCenter, all the time on games, like, is there not a level of justification that there are people that feel like, well, no, fuck you, I'm going to do the opposite, actually, and rub it in your face?
I should admit, by the way, that like this is maybe dangerous to admit.
Oh, please.
But like my group chats are full of just like making fun of clumsy liberal executions of like DEI policies, where it's like the equivalent of
leak the chats, Pablo. Let's see.
Yeah,
it.
this is where I get hacked, and I'm just like the worst for even bringing. No, it's the idea of like we're gonna spray paint end racism in the end zone. We're gonna have jersey names during the bubble that are clumsy, that are just. It's you're memeing yourself, right? It's you can imagine the board meeting full of people who don't actually give a fuck about this stuff being like, we got to pretend to give a fuck about this stuff. Yeah. It's that toothless, symbolic Nancy Pelosi kneeling, wearing African garb kind of shit, where it's like, this is not how I would have programmed this. And also, this is probably why I will never be asked to program this. There's a lot of clumsiness, a lot of incompetence, and just bad takes and not to both sides, but like on both sides, truly. Like there are a lot of terrible, like part of I've sort of like retracted into my shell on Twitter a little bit. I used to be in the wars, right? Yeah. Like I was in the viral Trump tweet derby for a long time. And then I was just like, the degree to which I'm consuming people on my side of the aisle, ostensibly, just saying stuff that makes me cringe is just, it became, like, I don't enjoy this either. And so the perk on Jokic thing was a funny subgroup of this, a more recent one. But the reason that's funny to me is because the only white guy even in commercials in the NBA anymore is Boban Marjanovic.
Right.
Like the idea that the white man it's just like, guys, I don't think that's it. I also think that when it comes to the specific nexus of what it means to be white and foreign in the NBA, we actually don't really know how to talk about Eastern Europe and the absolute pipeline of great talent from Luka and Jokic, most notably, into Boban. But do they really read our people? I mean, maybe they're getting white points on that subconscious sort of like unconscious bias level, but that's not the story to be. And so that was another one.
Like legit. It undermines legit racist stuff, And like this was the funny thing is, I like that you said that about your group checks because, by the way, I wish you would feel comfortable saying more of that stuff out loud because it's healthier, right? Like I think about this in the gay pride context. It used to be the case that it was liberals that made fun of the corporations doing gay pride stuff. It was gays. Yes. It was like because they were like, this is phony. It's BS virtue signaling. Like, actually show up and support us. That's great. But like, the Exxon, float at the gay pride parade, like isn't doing it for me, Like,
I want Raytheon to make me feel good about my private life.
Right.
Tim. That's where we differ.
But like now, unfortunately, the threats from like the anti-LGBT crew, the threats from like the MAGA right has like gotten so much that, people feel that they want all allies they can get. Right, and so they feel uncomfortable, like making the criticism of the hacky, the hacky efforts to, do lefty identity politics.
So one thing I should say that I'm interested in doing as I'm building this show outside of ESPN is finding ways to do exactly that. To find humor that actually does, and it's not because I want to appeal to the other side at all. Yeah, it's just because I do think an untapped vein of funny is just the stupidity of ways in which people are trying to be on the right side of history but haven't really thought through the logic of how they're trying to get there. And so I agree with you, and I will say as a defense, I just try to be off Twitter as much as I can when it comes to not just because everybody feels like they're a union rep now, where it's like if I am ceding any inch of territory for my group, we're losing. There is that vibe, no doubt. And that's a problem throughout American politics writ large. And then there's just the level of like, now I have to fight two fronts. And I'm like, that's a lot. I'm not paid for that shit, man. Yeah. I'm a dad now. If I wanted to fund my daughter's education using cross-cultural meme wars, that maybe I'd approach it differently.
All right, well, I want to go through a few issues. I got to call you out because you say you're getting off the Twitter wars, but in prepping for the show, I did go to your Twitter feed, of course. I was perusing your retweets,
hypocrite.
And I'm going to read this one and just let you cook on it for a second. It was David Roth, who's awesome, great follow. You retweeted him. He wrote, perfectly representative of our national decline and shameful on its merits that we've wasted so much time talking about a creepily self-assured toxins in 5G guy as a political candidate. This is one of the easiest types of people to avoid, the glass Joe of kooks. So you have some conspiracy expertise I want to get in next, but I just want to let you cook on RFK for a minute.
Yeah, it's funny. I was filling in as a host of Dan's show, and it came across our transom. This was weeks ago, before RFK peaked. The request came in, do you want to talk to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And I thought about this for a night, and I was like, do I want to talk to RFK? Because the upside, of course, is now evident, right? Like, there's a lot of content to be mined out of this.
Attention
and
economy.
The answer, spoiler alert, was fuck no, I don't. I don't want to do that because he's the glass Joe of kooks. What are we doing? Like, some part of me is like, are like the all-in podcast guys, the Silicon Valley guys, are they just not doing the Googles, ironically? Are they just not Googling this enough? Or are they just in that realm of like, today, my MVP is Nikola Jokic. Tomorrow, it'll be Joel Embiid. No one will remember that I was an RFK guy. Is that just what the bet is? Because all it does is ruin the credibility of people who have any sense of who RFK Jr. is or what he's about.
It's none of that, man. It's an op. It's an op. Like they're DeSantis. Like this is all this is a bank shot way to attack Joe Biden, and we feel like, we can do this performative, well, he's just asking questions and he might be making some good points, type of shit. It's like level A, like they haven't reached the Clay Travis level of just like totally owning their MAGA-ness. Like level A of the troll op is like pretending that they might be for, the lefty, complete kook. I have the mitochondria leaking from my brain because I'm on Wi-Fi.
My blood-brain barrier has been compromised. I just want to be on the record saying that. It is, in fact, compromised.
Your blood-brain barrier, just now that we had to talk about RFK Jr.?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Le Batard with them. Are you sure? Are you sure you shouldn't reconsider? Debate me, bro. Now that the debate has been challenged, the debate gauntlet's been thrown down.
I know. By the way, this is skipping around all sorts of metaphors for how sports has poisoned the blood-brain barrier of the American political mind. But it's sort of like the debate me bro culture is so funny because in sports it's entirely so I was at Regis High School. I was the Lincoln Douglas debate team captain, president. Oh wow, president Tim.
Oh wow, model UN for champions. Me. Yeah.
Well, that's embarrassing as a functionary of the global Illuminati, of course. But for me, I'm a Lincoln and Douglas. I'm an old school debater, right? And so for me, part of the premise was always, and this is funny in the high school context because the neutral observer, the neutral judge was, of course, someone's mom. But at least there was the premise of like the moderator being like a third party. And of course, the number one problem with any debate between teenagers was we got to define the terms of the debate. Like we have to agree that what we're talking about, the nouns, are actually the same thing. And this, of course, has never been a concern in sports debate. I debate sports all of the time. I look to Stephen A. Smith. I look to all of these luminaries. And of course, it's entirely theatrical. And of course,
this is a question, hot pressing question I've always had. Is it legitimately theatrical? Like, when you're subbing for Kornheiser, you and Wilbon going, oh yeah, I'll take the pro Aaron Rodgers side. You take the anti.
It's a great follow up. When I say theatrical, I mean that the goal is the theater of conversation. Like my takes are authentic, which is why I don't go viral as often.
Always authentic.
Oh, so are there days when it's like, look, the Cubs play the Cardinals. What's your take? And I'm like, I need to squeeze this take out of the driest towel inside of my brain because I got nothing on this shit. Yes, absolutely. I'm wringing out takes. Real constipated sometimes on the baseball take brain. But I'm not faking takes to take the other side. I know Kornheiser and Wilbon don't. By the way, Stephen A. himself, I believe, is just who he is. Like, that's just him, and the way he is animated by his opinions is sincere. I don't think he's strategically playing chess I'm going to do this take, but I do think he knows that the main value of the enterprise is theater. Like and people who get this wrong, people who actually try to win by being a logical point-by-point refutation, as you would do in a high school debate or any sort of like parliamentary debate, you're getting it backwards. Because the goal is not to actually be right. The goal is to ultimately entertain the audience and have them enjoy the time that they're spending with you, whether or not everyone wants to admit that. In this shit, though, do I want to debate RFK? I just feel like there's a layer of responsibility because I actually am concerned by the number of people who are subscribing to the Substack of the Glass Joe of kooks, where I'm just like, I feel like I need to actually point by point refute what you're saying. And if I don't do that, then I'm going to be the character in the documentary who is nodding and giving terrible listening face while that dude is saying some shit that is unbelievably dumb.
So this is interesting. You're saying you're using your sports debate, the theatrical sports debate experience. You can't actually debate RFK Jr. because the only way to beat him is in a game that is in a manner that actually kind of helps him in the performative sense, right? Like if you beat him on points, you become the boring person delivering stats, and he's the one that still wins in the end because he's able, he's not constrained by dealing with real facts,
because he's a rhetorical locomotive. And he is not going to take a pit stop to address the point I made. And so I'm just going to lose the rhetoric war, the performance war, the theater of it. So, unfortunately, I don't think I'm the right guy to do that. I think who would I send into the Coliseum of theatrical debate against RFK? I hope it's not somebody that we actually care about. You kind of want a suicide bomber, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see him debate Eric Andre. Can we send him to debate RFK Jr.? Like, if you take him seriously, take him seriously.
Debating Trump, right? Like, we need a suicide bomber. We need someone that we don't like. Right. I sort of against that because I hate him so much, but like that's the case for him, right? We need someone that, we want to offer.
You're not, because unfortunately, your pushback on the merits of coherence, of consistency, logical or scientific or political, that's not really the game that he's playing. And again, if you don't agree to the terms of the debate and you're the guy trying to be parliamentary about, I'm going to write down the arguments and respond, it's like, no, people just want to see dunks. And I want to see, I want to see the suicide bomber, which is a thing you should not clip out of this podcast because that'll sound terrible. But in context, I think you get my drift.
Yeah, you don't get clip approval. I want to I want to just one thing though that just stuck in my brain of your sentence there. You did say Stephen A. Smith's takes are always genuine. So when he predicted the Brooklyn Nets to make the finals this year and Kyrie to be an MVP candidate, that wasn't just for the content. That wasn't just for the retweets. That was his authentic view.
So
that's a little concerning.
I believe it point well taken. But I also believe that Stephen A. no one in, I would say, culture, no one's brain is organically suited better for the algorithm of memes. So the notion of like, is this a chicken or egg thing? Like, who came first? Was it the take? Was it the incentive? Like, his brain was already operating in a way that he did. Lots of people, Tim, that we know far younger than Stephen A. have had to reconfigure and re-strategize, pivot in the way that many people we've already referenced by name have to feed and abide by those incentives. Stephen A. has changed fucking nothing. He's been this way his entire life, and his way of being.
He came out of the womb like this.
He came out of the womb going viral, dude. Yeah. He's been viral from day zero. His just how he lives, just his face, like all of that shit. He did no retinkering for the internet. The internet, again, there's a whole like, no, Stephen A. is the internet as much as the internet is Stephen A. And it's a chicken or egg scenario on that philosophical level.
All right, a couple quick ones. I know where you're going to land on it, but I'm just interested in. I'm more interested in your view on kind of how these sports teams and leagues handled these issues. So the first one is the PGA. I was pretty riled up about this. Rory's my boy. And those guys did the right thing, and I kind of hit close to home. It felt like the Never Trump thing, where like we did the right thing in 2015 and 16, and said no, we're not going to throw in with this fucking corrupt buffoon, and then he wins, and so like the people that did the bad thing got rewarded. I felt that way about this PGA. Kind of re-merging with Live Golf, that the guys that went along with Saudi got rewarded. And so what is your take on kind of what happened there, and whether there'll be any, justice for, the people that did the right thing?
Yeah, I read a fascinating Washington Post piece about just the genesis of this. And part of the case that was made by one of the experts quoted was that the intention was not sports washing. This was just because the guy running the Saudi private investment fund just loves golf. Yeah. And I thought about this as a matter of like, maybe he just loves golf. Maybe there is a checkers being played. But the point that I keep on returning to when I watch and listen to these stories, because I too got agitated on a bunch of levels, because I feel like I at some point you got to take the sort of accounting seriously of the mudslide victims, of the journalists who get murdered, of the people who are not able to actually live free lives in Saudi Arabia, as a matter of just like obvious policy. And you got to sort of be that guy on TV, and I was that guy. And I was that guy because sports washing fucking works. Like the whole notion of sports, the reason why it works is because inevitably we're going to talk about the golf. Because we too love the golf. And so there is only as much shelf life for this critique on the level of Jamal Khashoggi and the LGBT community and all of this stuff, insofar as people have the oxygen to complain about it prominently, because inevitably we get to moving on to the next thing. And Jay Monahan, the head of the PGA, the fucking Baghdad Bob of this whole story, like that dude was like, in weeks, in months, we're not gonna be talking about this. And he was right. Like, that's the thing. It's a good bet to make. You bet on sports because we'll talk about sports, because ultimately we're exhausted by the fact that the real world does force us to reckon with the fact that if you don't care about shame anymore, and this is really answering the question finally, as I ramble on here.
No, please.
It's the shame of it. You had the most clear-cut example of hypocrisy, right? Literal 9/11 grieving families being propped up at Trump's course because they were objecting to the PGA, to live on the side of the PGA, being propped up by the PGA. You have all of these people on record being so morally clear in ways that are obvious, and now you have just this reversal that just gives, again, another reminder that shame is not a guardrail. And so it was a bummer because it doesn't matter what anybody even pretends to have convictions about. I just wish they had the courage of those fake convictions, because without it, it's even more apocalyptic than we thought.
Yeah, I'm going to give him the Lindsey Graham. I like the Baghdad Bob, but I think he's the Lindsey Graham. He's out there moralizing about the Saudis, and then just totally. I was sitting there, I was going, "What? Who is Jay Monahan in my Trump world? He's Lindsey."
That's right.
Anyway, okay, one more on politics stuff. Then I want to do a little sports. Phil. No, excuse me. I looked down at my notes and I was like, wait a minute. Before my last politics question, I have to ask you about Phil Mickelson. Why is he dressing up like Rupert Mannion and Ted Lasso now? Like he's gone full, like what has happened? Like he's just accepting that he's an evil character. He's like wearing black capes now. Like, can you explain that to me?
It's such a good point. Like, I had not contemplated this till you made that connection, but does Phil Mickelson have a stylist? Is a question that only now am I contemplating. Like, I watched, like, Steve Harvey rebrand, right? The Steve Harvey suit used to be this, just, of course, cultural artifact. So many breasts on that suit. So many buttons on those suits. Now he's, like, dressing as, like, a GQ cosplay kind of thing. Is Phil Mickelson just being advised to just lean into being evil? Like, is that just his deal now? It's a wise one, I would say, in terms of just like,
I don't know. Do some sourcing on that and get back to me. Does he have a stylist? Is this
my show?
Seems like it's intentional.
This is a good story for my show. I'm gonna look into this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It seems intentional. Phil was the guy. I liked Phil. Phil was the guy that stand and do when I was a kid.
Populist.
He would do signatures. You know, he'd hang out like, you know, when he'd come to the course, like, and I was like, what has happened that he did the complete heel turn? Anyway, yes. The Dodgers, I'm curious about the I don't really care which side you fall down on the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. You can give a take on that if you want. I'm more interested in your view on, like, are teams going to start getting intimidated out of doing stuff like this now?
Yeah, look, this is the "you will not replace us" energy that I think, again, like, what a victory. The midterms, not a victory. The Bud Light protests, major W. For people who are like, we matter. Like, internet brain culture, how do they actually put a thumb on the scale? This is the way that you can plausibly do it. And my hope, by the way, as an aside, is that the midterm elections are like a harbinger of like the fact that most of America is not on Twitter, which is a good reminder, hopefully. I'm like putting faith. That's like a very just rare glimpse of optimism into the political conversation, which you're right to woof me about as I digress on that. But look, dude, my take on this is, as I say, a Jesuit-educated member of the Catholic Church, is like, guys, maybe you don't be the ones to protest pedophilia in this way. Like, maybe that's not the block you want to make that hot. Just as a matter of my personal experience. Just like,
just a suggestion.
Just maybe leave that to another group to like pick another protest to mount.
I'm just kind of like, look, if you can prove to me that you're as mad about the priest pedophilia as you are about the sisters, then I'll allow it. I'm gonna need a picture of you at a protest.
That's right.
Outside a Cardinal's house.
A newspaper with like dated, 2000.
A letter to the editor that you wrote. Anything. I need something, and then I'll allow it. So I want to do a little Pablo's life here to close out before we get into the nuggets.
Sure.
You're the two things I think you're the most known for that I want to pick your brain on are one, the picture of you in the shark suit that people see. That's your most memeable moment. You're not Stephen A. You don't have thousands of memes. You have one meme. Or are you in a whale suit?
It's an orca.
You're in a whale suit?
I was into killer whales before.
The shark was the Super Bowl halftime. You're in the killer whale. And you were talking to Jesse Ventura in the whale suit. Is that the origin of this?
So I referred before to the oppressive nature of being in Dan's family. And so the hazing, like there's a football pool. We'd all draw teams. And if your team lost, you'd get a punishment in the grid of death. My grid of death punishment early on was to dress as an orca whale and co-host the show. What I did not realize, and this did inform my own personal desire to cover both sports and politics, what I did not know was that the call-in guest that day would be Jesse Ventura. And so I was dressed as an orca as Jesse Ventura, pivoted to 9/11 conspiracies. And so that GIF, that meme is me in that moment realizing I'm going to explain this to my parents at some point, what I did at work today. And it's going to not
So
be,
I've only seen the GIF or GIF, whatever. I've not seen the video. Does the video exist?
The video was unfortunately wiped off of YouTube.
The video's gone. And so what is Jesse's 9/11 take? Was it the second tower thing? Is it Bush did it? Like, what is Jesse saying as you're in the orca suit? Put me in the room.
I'm in my memory. He's talking about jet fuel and steel beams, but in a way that's so casual that it was like, again, it's that thing of, do I now have to respond to this seriously dressed as an orca? It's the RFK question, but in miniature, of like, do I now need to stand up for non-9/11 truthers? Because if I'm just nodding in an orca suit, the complicitousness is kind of undeniable. Spoiler alert, I did not object. I mostly looked around as in that GIF. Yes.
Is that why the video's gone? You had it scrubbed? You were disappointed that you didn't challenge him?
Yeah. Just like LeBron got dunked on at a Nike basketball camp once by Jordan Crawford, had the video erased. I did the same thing because Jesse Ventura got away with like second tower shit, and I was like, don't know what to do.
I'm cooking this for Mendelsohn. We're gonna find the Jamal Crawford video. Okay, the PTI. I just want you to regale us for 1 second because they're DC guys, right? So there's a lot of I think political overlap with the PTI dudes. And if I had a penny for every time somebody's like, you should do PTI for politics, like that would be a great idea. Like that's everybody's idea forever. How did you get in with those guys in the inner circle? And like, what's their magic? Can you put it into words for us? Like, why has that worked in a way? There've been like a million copycats that just didn't land.
Yeah, so a couple of funny things about this is, number one, they are a great example of being naturally, authentically theatrical. So, like, they are who they are. They walked into the door that way. It's two friends who are old and cantankerous, have always been old and cantankerous. And they just have the experience of being, as Tony Kornheiser has put it, not just smart and funny, but being generalists. Like, they are a mile wide, but maybe occasionally, admittedly, an inch deep on stuff. But in sports, that's okay, because so too is the experience of being a sports fan who likes all of these things. And so for them, the magic is the chemistry and the relationship. And the magic of me getting into their world is that Around the Horn was like my gateway into DC, because Around the Horn was done out of DC when Tony Reale lived in DC, and Tony Reale was stat boy on PTI. And naturally, this guy, me, ended up being a natural substitute stat boy. And so I ended up doing that.
The Harvard Asian guy, we're going to make a stat boy.
It's just, it was almost too on the nose, and yet I did it anyway. But what happened next was that
Did you dress the part? Did you wear? I remember Tony Reale being stat boy. I think I'd gotten into a real life job by the time you took over stat boy, so I don't recall your. Did you wear a bow tie? Did you do any of those things?
I was only on a substitute basis, but I did wear cardigans often, which was a cell phone in ways that I only recognize truly now. Years later. But what happened also on the nose was that Tony Kornheiser began to like me, but became fearful that I could not co-host PTI with him because I was so truly over the top young looking and nerd looking, and that his joke was, and it wasn't really a joke, was that I will only co-host PTI with Pablo Torre if he spray paints his hair gray and pretends that he's older, because this is far too existentially disturbing. And eventually I convinced him otherwise, and we became truly I love that dude. He's ornery and he hates so many things, and I love it. And so for me, the magic has always been in just, are you into who this guy is? These guys are. And for a lot of people, it turns out terrifyingly, the answer is yes, to the point, Tim. That when you said, can I do PTI for politics, I would say that PTI for politics exists in the form of every show in politics that stole the devices pioneered by PTI. The rundown on the side of the screen, the clocks, the movement, the pacing. It was internet attention span theater before the internet. And obviously, cable news took a lot from that in a real, sincere way. It was a forerunner of so many of those devices.
For sure. And the reason why it couldn't be a perfect thing is, to your inch deep point, is even though cable news does this somewhat, I'm not going to do a show where I have to be an inch deep on Ukraine. You know what I mean?
Correct.
You can do a show where you're an inch deep on hockey, because there's nothing, not a big deal. But you can't do that for politics. Anyway, okay, let's do some NBA talk. You were the guy that were you the Chroniker? How do we?
I believe you're looking for high priest of the process.
Priest?
Is that
what is that word?
For?
Of trust the process.
Yeah, I chronicled.
Talk to me about
also...
trust the process. This for the Sixers. JVL, my usual co-host, is a Philly guy. I'm sad he couldn't be here for this. The process hasn't really worked out.
Well, that's a matter of debate.
Is it? What's done? How's the process looking right now?
This is so one of the things I'm fascinated by is when sports arguments are actually kind of about sports in a real way, and it's not about culture; it's about sports. And in this case, the story of the process to me is about a human psychology problem that is so perfect for sports. It's about, do you ever trust the process of something, or do you only care about the results? And so the idea of, my plan was great, but this other thing happened. Do we ever have sympathy for the guy whose plan was great? It turns out that in sports, the answer is, go fuck yourself. We don't give a shit about process. And so for me, when I say the process is a matter of debate, it's that debate. It's and again, I could spend literal hours, and I don't want to do that to you or to your audience or to myself. But I would say that when it comes to what Sam Hinkie, the GM of the Sixers, who was deposed by the league for being too dangerous, for talking about Tank Club even once, when the rule of Tank Club is you never talk about Tank Club, what he did was that he said, there's this incentive. The NBA has socialized their losses in the sense of the worst teams get the highest draft picks. And so he took that seriously in a sport. Again, I don't have to explain all this to you. Superstars matter, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, he exploited that aspect of the game that the NBA is just hoping people are too polite to fully go in on, and
didn't draft Jason Tatum with it.
That shit is infuriating to me because Sam Hinkie was deposed before he could have drafted Jason Tatum instead of Markelle Fultz, who Brian fucking Colangelo traded up to. It was. There are many sliding doors moments.
There's been a process. There's been a process that's kind of worked though, which is the Denver Nuggets don't skip steps process. That worked pretty well. Like you draft players, you let them get better, you stick with them, you trade a few pieces that complement the existing players that you've drafted. That's a process of in a sense, don't you?
Can I just say the Denver Nuggets, to your point, are fucking fantastically run. However, the point at which you draft Nikola Jokic 41st overall during a commercial break, during a literal quesarito commercial, when you become that team that gets to literally parade around, look at the great... You guys lucked into Nikola Jokic. I'm sorry. As much as you should be celebrating the awesomeness of him, if you draft anyone during a commercial break... You didn't see the diamond in the rough.
We're cutting rapid fire. We're just doing the final 3 minutes on the Nuggets. Okay, that is wrong. All right, because they drafted Yusuf Nurkic and Nikola Jokic, and many people wanted them to stick with Nurkic. Jokic was like a tub of lard drinking Diet Pepsi on the sidelines, and we saw the beauty and the majesty of running an offense around a fat point center. Like that was what the Nuggets identified in 2017. That's what I identified watching on NBA League Pass when I needed a break from the sadness that was my existence as a never Trump Republican. And so we have watched 600 games of this because we knew. We saw what we had and we knew it. Plenty of people saw what, the Sixers had plenty of people that were pretty good and they didn't stick with them. Maybe Jimmy Butler comes to mind. They got rid of him. That was not luck. It was a process that worked.
You deserve to crow about this.
Thank you.
In all seriousness. It's the whole thing about the Nuggets, the critique from, again, the theatrical debate, sports debate industrial complex was, in a literal way, the debate about the Nuggets became... The Nuggets, are they interesting? And to me,
Chris Mannix.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't shout out to my former colleague at SI, Chris Mannix, but it was just sort of like the fact that is a question is interesting. Like, there's the meta level of like, what the fuck are people not finding interesting about Nikola Jokic? And then there's the level of like, it's just interest. I mean, it's the glow up. Somebody talk about people who definitely don't have stylists. Nikola Jokic.
He's got a wife. He's got a Serbian wife.
He has
looking good.
He has what is it like? He's like a carriage racer. Like I don't know the type
carriage
of
horse racing.
Yeah. That his vibes are immaculate. To be clear,
dude, his vibes are. When did you know that the Nuggets were going to be the champions this year? When did you know that all of the takes had been wrong and that he can play defense and that they weren't going to be able to spam the pick and roll against him? That wasn't going to work. Like when did it click for you?
Game two of the finals.
Of the finals?
Yeah. I was, I saw it, and this is where
Game 1 of the Sun series. Game 1 of the Sun series. I was like, this is our year. It's over.
It's a better answer. No, and you look back, it's like, oh, this team was challenged by nobody. That is real. The record, the run, exactly, all of that shit. Jokic having as good a postseason as anyone has metrically had in human history. I just became, this is how my brain gets eaten. So I work for this company called Meadowlark, as aforementioned, in Miami, and I go watch Jimmy Butler in person drop 56 on the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm like, I'm in the cult now. Like, number one, I resent the Sixers letting him go. Number two, I just watched this dude do that shit to fucking Giannis, and now I'm like, I can't write this off until the very last moment that the car is careening off the cliff. And that was game 2. But you're right that any sane person could have seen it when they waxed the Phoenix Suns. That is a fair point.
Yeah, you were a little late, but that's okay. We appreciate you finally got around, Pablo. Everybody was late too, except for my man Big Waz. He's the only NBA pundit that had it right from the beginning. Okay, we're out of time, so we don't have time for rapid fire. But I have to do 2, so they're super rapid fire. Your Sports Center anchor, Mount Rushmore, go.
Oh my God! Can I just cast Bill Walton as a SportsCenter anchor? Because he's never been one, but he is a one question and then he talks for 7 hours. Yes, love that.
This could be the answer to your next question, though. A sports figure that you would most like to see run for office.
Oh my God!
That could be Bill
Is that also Bill Walton?
That could be Bill Walton.
I don't want to pry too deep into, like, again, when we talk about the blood-brain barrier, I don't want to know if Bill has takes on that. Like, there's a certain level of deadheadedness where it's just like, oh, I regret spelunking into this cavern, but it is enticing to me. Yes.
Okay, well, my answers were Joe Burrow, moderate king Joe Burrow, who we love. We want to see him run for office after he wins the Super Bowl. Your SportsCenter Mount Rushmore is SVP, Olbermann, Patrick, and Stu Scott. Any objection? Anybody you want to kick off?
No, Olbermann, by the way, like, I filled in for him when he had a talk show on ESPN too, and I learned just about him and like how he does. Whatever you think of him now, give me a better TV essayist in the history of the medium than that guy, and you will not find him. So all that makes
stolen
sense.
by literally by political news. Pablo, this is so good, buddy. Thank you for doing it. Good luck on the new when your thing comes out. We'll make sure to promote that. Go to pablo.show and get signed up for the list. Give my love to Billy Corbin, and we'll hang out. I'll holler at you.
As long as, again, the blood-brain barrier, survives another day.
As long as we don't leak. As long it's
leaking
exactly right now. This could be the end.
Oh,
this could be
that's
the
a
end.
problem. I regret this.
All right, let's see you, man.